So I mean, you grew up during the Depression.
Oh yeah, Christ. If I told you stories about, if I told you about, I sold papers for 3 cents. 3 cents. But you see, in those days you learn the tricks. So I'll tell you what the tricks is. I didn't come from, the fucking farm. I've been around the fucking block. Don't kid yourself. I'm a nice guy, but I got a lot of fucking experience. I've been into real estate, stock market. I was a manager of fighters. I was a manager of a band. I did everything. I met an older guy. I always listened to older guys. So I was selling papers, and he says, "Hey Tom," he says, he says, "You're kind of green here, he says, "You're doing the wrong thing." I said, "Well, what's the matter?" "Well," he says, "you're selling those goddamn papers for 3 cents. He says, "You're making a penny, and the boss is making the 2 cents. He says, "I'm going to show you how to make at least 3 cents, and the boss will make 2. Well, I said, "What do I got to do?" "Well," he says, "when you leave the house," he says, "never carry any pennies in your pocket." And he says, "when you sell a paper to the guy, the average guy has a nickel or a dime. So when he hands you a nickel, you put your hands in your pocket and you turn them inside out like this here, and you keep fucking around like this here and scratching around and every fucking thing." So pretty soon the guy, "Oh, get the hell out of here, kid." So you got 3 cents for the fucking paper, the boss got 2. So that's how it was. In those days, there was no locks on houses, or anything, and everybody trusted, everybody helped everybody. And there was no such thing as calling in a handyman. There was no handyman. If you had something wrong with your roof, a friend of yours was a roofer, he'd fix your roof. You might be a plumber, electrician, then you'd go and fix his house. That's the way they worked it. You see?
When you sold papers, did you sell them on Potrero Hill or what?
No. I sold them on the waterfront. I was into Red's Java House during the 1934 general strike, selling papers in there when I was 7 years old. And little did I realize someday that we would buy the fucking place and own it. Yeah.
You bought that later? Oh.
We bought it, yeah. Me and my brother owned Red's Java House. There it is right there.
Yeah, I saw a photo down there.
Yeah, we owned that for 40 years.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I used to go on the goddamn ships, sell them on the ships. So the first place when you went on the ship in those days, you headed for the galley. That's where the cook was, the galley on the ship, they call that. Because we were all hungry. We didn't have no fucking food at home. So you went in there and wash some pots and pans, and the cook would feed you. And sometimes the mess boy's the guy that serves the table, he might have went ashore and got drunk or some fucking thing. So it's all family style, so the cook would have it here, and you'd bring it and put it on the table, and the sailors would eat it. Hey, these were tough times, man. And then, so they'd have a watchman on the dock. You learn all these tricks, see? They have a watchman on the dock, so the guy says, "Well, Tom," he says, how'd you get by the watchman?" I says, "Very simple." I says, "In those days, the trucks all come in, right? So when a big fucking truck come in, you went alongside of the goddamn truck on the opposite side of where the watchman was. And you went in with the truck, so you didn't see a grit. Or you'd climb over the goddamn fence or underneath it. Hey, things were tough. These guys don't know nothing. They don't know shit for shit. All of these kids today. Fucking things were rough. I lost my mother when I was 13, and then I was put into about 5 different homes, I'd stay for about a month, and I'd take a hike. I didn't like the fucking place, so they picked me up and throw me in another one. I was up in Santa Rosa on a farm, cried sick when I was 14 years old, milking cows, and then I left that joint, come back, and this and that. The last place I ended up was in St. Vincent's home, up in San Rafael, so I was in 5 different homes. See, in those days, if the mother died, you see, the father wasn't allowed to keep the kids. You see, if the father died, the mother could take care of the kids because the father was working, see? There'd be he was working. So who's going to take care of the kids? So you see, in this case here, my mother died, so my father had to work, so there's nobody home. So they throw you in a home. That's what they did with me.
What happened to your mom?
She died in 1941. She had childbirth. Yeah, but her and my father split up. It's a rough go, you know.
You mean they split up?
Yeah, they split. They got divorced.
That was.
To be honest with you, another fucking Irishman come in. You know, see, my father and mother were both born in Ireland. Another guy come in that knew my mother in Ireland. They possibly was going together, if you figure it all out. Before my father and mother got married, my mother knew that my father was coming to Ireland, so I guess she married my father to get over here. And then eventually this guy showed up at the house, and we didn't know what the fuck was doing. So he ran away with my mother, and they got divorced. So my mother she had a baby. I got a stepsister that lives in Petaluma, but I call her my sister because she's a beautiful girl. You know, you don't call them stepsister. And then she was having another baby and she died.
To get divorced at that time was unusual,
I
right?
just kind of walked away, yeah.
Oh.
Very unusual, yeah. But, you know, things were tough. You know, my father was working for the West Pacific Railroad, and you know what he made? $5 a day. That's what he made. You know, it was tough. You know, and then he borrowed property that they had down there, you know, West Pacific, way down 25th Street, that's where they had all the property. They'd give him a piece of property over there and he'd grow potatoes over there, you know, and bring them home. And then we'd go out to, you know, papers, different things. I could write a book. So we used to go out to Butcher Town, that was out in Evans Avenue, all the butcher houses. So we'd go in there and we were redheaded kids, well, fuck you, selling papers and this and that and every day. You used to go in there. So they give you liver and they give you the hearts and every day. You take that home. So I loved liver and hearts. They butcher the cows. I'd see them hitting the goddamn cows over the head with the sledgehammers, killing the cows. Then they'd have a steel buggy there and they put the hearts and the liver in there, separated up. So they'd give you that. So we'd go out there and bum meat out there. You didn't have no money. There's no food in the house. Things were rough. When I went to school at St. Teresa's, you know what the tuition was? $1 a month.
What was that school like?
Oh, we had the nuns. It was tough. Sure, it was tough. Sure. I can tell you stories about one time I went to, you know, they had what they cloak room. You know, it was a separate room. You ever hear what they call something a cloak room? Yeah. Separate room where people come in there and put their galoshes and their stuff and their lunches and coats and hats and everything in there. Well, one time I was probably shooting spitballs at the girls or some fucking thing and I got caught, so they locked me in there, right? Well, they never locked me in there again because when I went in that fucking cloakroom, I was hungry. So what did I do? I ate about 4 lunches in there. I belonged to somebody else. Then the teacher brought me up in front of the goddamn class, me and another guy. He happened to be a big millionaire too. And she says, hey, you see these 2 hoodlums there? These 2 guys will never amount to anything. Well, we happen to be the 2 most successful guys in the class.
What was the mix of kids like at the school?
Oh, the mixer was very good. You could see in the picture, you know. Take a look at that. Hey, there's a mixer for you. I'm right in that picture there. That's 1940.
Okay.
Yeah.
What were the nationalities of the kids?
Italian and a few Spanish and Irish and mostly Irish and Italian and a few Spanish and that. You see, the Russians didn't come down into St. Teresa's. They came as far as Daniel Webster. All the Russians either went to Patrick Henry up in the hill or to Daniel Webster. They had a regular circle, see, of people up there. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the name of the guy that he's like the mayor up there, you know. And he's a real classy guy. but I'll tell you, have to show you how to go to the wife. The wife is kind of overlooks the husband, watches him. She doesn't mingle with anybody unless you know somebody. So if I knew when you was gonna contact them, I would have to call her up in advance and tell her that you're coming or something, you see.
Great.
And then you could do it, because
Okay.
she loves me, you know, but she's a tough lady.
Okay.
A beautiful lady, but she's very protective of her husband,
Okay.
you know, so you gotta work deals, you know. Oh, I did everything.
Tell more about the school. Going to
St. Teresa's?
Yeah.
Well, like I say, the tuition was $1 a month, and naturally I couldn't afford $1 a month. So in those days, they had an old stove in there, coal burning stove, you see, but it had a small entrance where you put the coal in. And the West Pacific Railroad, they used to donate the coal to the school. That's how things worked in those days. So anyway, what I did, me and my brother and sisters, we'd go up there and we'd break the coal down so you could get it in the boiler, you see. And then in the summertime, we'd go up there, and the nuns they had the presentation nuns up there, you see. And they were strict as the son of a gun, you know, as smart as a whip, and they lived right in the building, you know. So anyway, we would go up in the summertime then, and we'd clean the yards up where they grew a bunch of flowers and stuff like that and everything. We'd clean up the yards all the time. That's how we paid our tuition. We had no money. No money. $1, that's what it was.
What did the kids do for fun?
The kids in those days, the street there, which is Pennsylvania there, that's between 19th and 20th. That's where it is. So what they did, they had like a frame with a rope over here and a rope on this side here. And when you went out for recess or for lunch, they blocked the street off. The street was used for our playground. We played on the street. There was a very small yard in there, very small. But most of the boys and most of the people played on the street there. So we played handball out there, hit it on the side. There was a cement wall over there, we played handball there. And then they'd play a game of what they call cross the river, you know. And that would be, you know, guys would be in the middle of the street and you'd have to run across, and the idea was to block you from getting over there. You see, they call it across the river. Then they play handball and stuff like that out there, and shoot the breeze. And then down in the corner, there was a lot down there. In those days, there was property around, you know, empty property. And there was property down there. There was a big lot down there in the corner, at 20th Street. So we used to go in there and play agates. You know what agates are. And they had plug holes. You had 5 plug holes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 in the middle. See, so you had to go around maybe one time, and then you go in the middle. So the guy that went around one time could make it from hole to hole, and went in the middle, you won. See, that's they're called plug holes, and agates used them, small like games like that. That's what we did. Then after school, you know, a lot of kids, they had little chores to do around the house. Well, I was either selling magazines. I sold a Liberty magazine, and I sold a Saturday Evening Post. I shined shoes, and I sold the San Francisco News, the Call Bulletin, you know.
Beginning at what age?
7, yeah. Because, you know, my father and mother woke us up, and we had to get up, and I'd sell papers before I went to school in the morning. I'd go down to Sea Island Sugar, which was down off of 3rd down there, and it was at the foot of 24th. Sea Island Sugar down there, and there was a plant down there, that'd be probably 200 people come in there. Well, I get down there when they come to work. You see, they come to work there at 8 o'clock. So I'd be down there at 7:30 with my magazines, selling them right in front there, you see, and then I'd get out of there about 8:30, then I'd run home, and then I'd go to school. So that would be magazines. And then in the afternoon, then I'd have to sell papers. And in those days, when you made any money, you see, that money wasn't yours. You had to turn it into the house. That belonged to the parents. You didn't figure it was your money. It belonged to the house. You turned it home because they needed it.
Did you have brothers and sisters?
Yeah, there was 5 of us, 3 boys and 2 girls. 1 bedroom in the house. Me and 2 brothers slept in the porch in 1 bed. The porch. And when it rained, a lot of water come in. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Fucking roof was leaking. You know what I mean? And when my father first moved in that house, he came from Ireland in 1924. And naturally, the Irishmen, they all knew another Irishman. That's how they got here. One went right back, and he had a couple of brothers and sisters were there before him. So him and my mother come over there. So they said they knew this old house, where I showed you down there, was boarded up. Nobody wanted it, you know. So they found out an Irishman owned it. So they went and seen him. And they said, well, we'd like to buy the house. My father says, well, how much do you want for it? The guy says, I want $800 for it. You see? Well, my father says, I don't have $800. The guy says, how much do you have? See, my father's name was Mike, and Mike in Ireland is called Mickey. So he says, I got $300. The guy says, I'll take it. So that was it. So when it rained, the fucking you know, the roof was all shot and everything. And the guy come up there and he says, hey, Mickey, he says, I'm gonna fix the roof for you. Oh, my father says, well, he says, whatever you do, don't fix the roof. He says, why not? He says, I'm gonna take care of you, don't cost you nothing, you know, a neighbor. He says, listen, he says, how in the hell do you think I get my water? See, in Ireland, they put out buckets. They don't have no, you know, pipes coming in. They got to put out buckets when you get up in the hills of Ireland. I've been in the hills of Ireland, you know. They got buckets all over the fucking place and they catch the water. That's how they get the water. We never had a phone in the house. And when we moved into that house, there was no electricity.
Were your neighbors Irish?
No, next door was Italian. The name was Caesar. And they had a big bed in the garage, and they used to make wine, you know. You guys were all fucking bootlegging, you know, anything. Went dirt road. Nobody ever come up our road. You had to go over a wooden bridge to come up to my house. So if anybody come up and drove a car or something up there, you knew it was coming, because when it went over the fucking bridge, you could hear the goddamn wood shaking on it. And the dogs were all, we had a dog and neighbors had it, so the dogs would all start barking. So you knew somebody was coming. It wasn't a true street, you know. It's a fucking old dirt road, you know. That's all was up there. There was only 3 houses where we lived, right there. And so that's what it was, you know.
When you were a kid, did you ever go to the movies on Connecticut Street?
I went to yeah. In those days, it was, you know, the name of it was the New Potrero Theater. They called it the Flea House, you see, and they called it the Nick. It was 3 names. New Potrero Theater, they called it the Flea House, and they called it the Nick. And it was 10 cents. You seen 2 movies, you seen Looney Tunes or Mickey Mouse, or you seen the March of Times, and then a chapter. A chapter would start maybe this week, chapter 1, and then next week it'll be chapter 2, then it'll go into chapter 3, it might go to chapter 15, you know. And if you went on Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock, which I never did, they usually gave you a Hershey candy bar. You paid 10 cents to get in, and they gave you a Hershey candy bar. And when you opened it up, it was always moldy, you know. But it was fucking candy. You know, you just wipe it off. You know, it'd be white. You know, you wipe it off and you eat it because you're hungry. People don't know you ain't got no fucking money, you ain't got no food. See? That's how it was.
Did they give out china at the theater when you went there? I heard something about that.
They gave it out maybe later on in life, yeah, but then I was out of it, you know, but I'm talking about at that time. So they had a man and a woman, and they had 3 people operating a movie house, you know. There was a lady in a booth out there, and then there was a man and wife inside. And then the back in there was maybe about 3 rows of seats, and they called that the loges, see? So that cost you nickel more if you wanted to sit in there. That was the loges. and the guy used to come in there, you know, after the kids were raising hell, the guy had a flashlight, and he'd come in and walk down the middle, he's shining on you, you know, over there, and that was it, you know. Better dumb me up, you know.
How many people fit in the theater, would you guess?
Well, I'd say a couple of hundred, yeah. There was quite a few seats in there, you know. There was aisle down the middle and the seats on the right, seats on the left. So they probably run around 6 or 7 deep, you know. So there's quite a few. Yeah, you'd hold a couple of hundred in there. Yeah, had a little stage on there, but there was never nothing on the stage. But that's how the Flea House was, you know.
Did you hang out with the Russian kids at all? Or
Well, you see, the way it was, you see, the Russian kids, you see, now, they all stood up in the hills, see. So the here's where the Russians hung out. They hung out on Arkansas Street, and then Wisconsin Street, then Carolina, and Rhode Island. Rhode Island was very heavy, yeah. Those are the streets, and then Vermont on the other side, you see. That's where they hung out. And they had the neighborhood house up there. So if you wasn't a Russian and you went up there, you could lose your ass. You know, you better stay the fuck out of there. I mean, that's the way it was. That was their place. And they wouldn't come down where we lived either. And they wouldn't go to other neighborhoods. They stood in their own neighborhood. The Russians were very nice. And a lot of them, you know, they came from the old country. Like I said, most of them went to either Daniel Webster or Patrick Henry. But a lot of them had a little house in their backyard, and they had steam bats. You know, they had a little house back there, and they used to get a galvanized boiler that used to be a water heater, and maybe after 10 years, the bottom rusted out or some fucking thing. They lay it flat, and they built a fire underneath it, and they'd get steam, and they'd have a little pipe running in to the room, you see. And they'd have leaves in there. I went in there, you know, and you get a Russian bath in there. See, they waved the leaf and the steam in there and everything. That's what they was doing. And, you know, anything went, you know, you're parked on the sidewalk, this and that, you wouldn't see a cop. In those days, there used to be one cop out of Potrero Station on 20th Street. They had a hay barn in the back. And down there at 20th and 3rd Street, you know, where the police station was. That guy used to come up on a horse, and he'd patrol the hill, you see, because it was, you see, there was 24th Street didn't run over the hill, see, 24th didn't run over there, and 23rd didn't run over either, see. It went like from 22nd Street, and then it picked up at 24th, but then 24th it ended at Mississippi. You see, you couldn't. Then it was all rock and hills, and that's where it went. And there was a couple old shacks around up there, spread around in there.
Was there any of Irish Hill left when you were a kid?
Oh yeah, we played down at Irish Hills. You could see the foundations. See, the whole idea, you know, you know, I think I told a story about how the Irish landed in there, you know. Didn't I tell you that story?
About the, I think I mentioned where Union Ironworks sent guys back to Belfast to get some skilled labor to come back.
That's it.
Yeah.
And then they had the people, the workers right there, see? And now, where I lived over there on Mississippi Street, you see, the Western Pacific Railroad came up there, you know, did you know that?
Where are you?
And went through the tunnel there.
Okay.
Did you know about the tunnel there?
Yeah.
Okay, the West Pacific Railroad, what they did, you see, in those days, you see, San Francisco is basically an island, you see, and all the freight and everything and shipped out of San Francisco and everything was brought from across the bay on train barges. There was about 5 different landings of different train barges. So Western Pacific had one down at the end of 25th Street. They had a big yard down there, the office and the whole goddamn thing. The train barge come in there. So the West Pacific train would come up around 25th and curve over and cross over Pennsylvania and come over here and then go in a little gully in there underneath the wooden bridge where I lived on Mississippi. And then the tunnel started at the foot of Texas Street. And that tunnel had a wooden frame in there, which was unusual. Most of them didn't. They had either cement or something like that. And the water was always dripping in there because I used to always jump on the back of the train and ride it through there. You know, that's how kids did.
Other kids did that too?
Yeah. And when you come out on the other end, it was Jackson Park was over there. So whenever they needed any repair work and anything, they had the same system that the shipyard, the Irish Hill did, and that was a system of the West Pacific. It'd have like 4 boxcars, you see. And what they did, you see, they had a regular crew there. All right, so they had 1 boxcar for the cooks and everything. They cooked and everything on there, you see. Then the next boxcar, they had about 15 guys on there. They lived in the boxcar, you see. Then they had one with all the tools and everything. So what they do, if they needed any work done on the tunnel down there, these 4 boxcars would come out and they'd park to one side on a separate track and they'd do all the repair work. The men were all right there.
Do you know Epic Perea? He goes to St. Teresa's. He grew up on a car like you're describing, I think. His dad was one of those workers.
Yeah, I know the name, yeah.
Epic, yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, you know, like I say, we was hungry in those days, so what we, you know, when they park a boxcar down there, we'd go down by the cook shack, you know. Well, the guy made his own pies in there. Well, when you put them on the fucking window, we'd grab one and take a hike with it. I mean, that's how it was. You had to help yourself.
Was the crematory there? Do you know the
Crematory? I spent a lot of time down there.
What was that like?
Crematory, that's where all the garbage came in San Francisco, you see. So anyway, there was a big overhead walk around there in those days, you see, a big overhead walk to come around it.
Where was the crematory?
The crematory is over there was over at 16th Street, and then going north that way there.
Near the waterfront?
Well, it's
a little bit.
No,
west.
3rd Street is here. You see, and the waterfront is here. The crematory is up this side of 3rd.
Okay.
Yeah, on the west side.
Mm-hmm.
It was a big deal. So the way it worked was this here. They had a big ramp, you see, and the ramp went up like this here. You see, the trucks would drive up both sides, you see, like this here. And what they did is, then on the right side, you see, the boxcars would come in there, and the trucks would back up and dump it right into the trains there, the open bins, and the garbage would float in there. That's how they did it, and then they'd haul it away. So that's they had a big ramp there. See?
Why were you going there?
Because we were looking for bottles that we could take up to a grocery store and sell them for 2 cents a piece to try to make a dime. Looking for
My dad did that.
Look for that.
Yeah, they would always go to the dump and look for bottles to sell.
Yeah, I went all I got there. There was dumps all around down the waterfront, around 25th Street. I said that was all dumps down there. In Tennessee Street in there, 1940, that whole goddamn piece of property in there between Army and Tennessee, there was nothing on it. It was all flat. It was a dump. And filling it up and everything and stuff like that. And Ringley Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus used to come in there and use the property and set up tents and everything, and then we'd sneak into the fucking circus too.
Oh, they had the circus down in...
Yeah, right there.
Wow.
Right there.
Did anybody call it Dogpatch then?
Never heard of the word. Never heard of the word. I'm telling you the truth. Never heard of the word. Mm-hmm. And that's where, you know, the troops settled after the 1906 earthquake, you know. Mm-hmm. They settled right in that property, and that's how the name Army Street came up. Mm-hmm. They set up little teepees and little shacks for them and everything, and it was in all that ground. And there was reserves for the fire and the earthquake and stuff like that. So they camped there, the Army Street. There's all little creeks, there was all a lot of little creeks and stuff around there. We used to play them and everything, you know. And
did you swim in the bay at all?
That's where you learn how to swim. We went down there and helped ourselves to a fucking pile of lumber and built a little house right in the water. And the guys would dive in there, and that's where we learned. And push the oil and the shit aside, and off you go. Yeah. Oh, it was...
Sounds nice.
It wasn't easy, baby, I tell you. It wasn't easy, I tell you. You had to hustle to make a buck with it. You did everything. Anything that, you know. Should I had a dog, and his name was Jimmy. He's a wire-haired terrier, see? And so I used to take him with me sometime, and I had a string on the fucker, you know. And he was a mean son of a bitch, you know. And if he didn't know you, he'd grab you, you know. So anyway, I'd take him with me, and a few times, you know, you learn how to make a buck, see. The guy says, hey kid, he says, you want to sell a dog? Yeah, I'll sell it there. Yeah. How much you give me for him? Will you take a dime? I said, sure, I'll take a dime for him, you know. The guy give me a fucking dime. I get about 30 feet away, and I say, hey Jim, fucking dog grabbed the guy in the fucking leg and sell it again. That's how it was. These are true stories, you know. I'm not bullshitting, you know. I'm telling you that's how it was. I mean, you had to make a buck.
What was going on at the shipyards?
The shipyard was going full blast, you know. And they built destroyers in there. They built cruisers in there. They did a lot of repair work in there because that was they had one of the biggest dry docks on the West Coast, you know, Bethlehem Steel.
Could you just walk in there?
No. If you wanted to get in there, you had to sneak in, just like I told you. You had to get around. You all had watchmen, you know, and you had to know how to get around it. You know, if the watchman was on one side, you had to wait for a fucking truck or something on the other side so you could go in with it, you see. And then the guy wouldn't see you. You see, that's the way you could do it. But it was very hard to get in Bethlehem Steel. It was the Union Ironworks, you know. It was very hard to get in there, you know. We didn't play that. We played the ships on the waterfront. The ships on the waterfront, you see, in those days, there was a lot of steam schooners. A steam schooner is one that ran up and down the coast, and they carried just lumber, see, and they came into where the ramp is down in there now. There was a big pier in there, and Loop Lumber Company, you see, they had their own mill and everything right on that dock. Well, a steam schooner come in and dump all that wood there and everything. So we played the steam schooners because they were the best. The offshore ships that went overseas and stuff like that, they were no good. The fucking food was the shit on them. The steam schooners had the best food. Why did they have the best food? Because when I went up the coast, they was only out for 2 or 3 days. So they always had fresh food, see, on the fucking days.
Yeah.
And they had mostly Norwegians, Swedes, and Danes, and they were nice guys, hard-working son of a bitches. I shook hands with a fucking guy once, so why fuck, I thought I was shaking hands with a fucking piece of steel. You know, they work so goddamn hard. And the lumbers, see, they make up you make a load of lumber up, you know, this lumber is all flattened out, you know, piece by piece. And then they have a little dolly here, and they make up a load, you see. They put it on here and they make a load up, you see, all by hand, building fucking there. And then the winch driver on the ship, he'd get a goddamn hook on the fucking thing and pull it, you know. Maybe it was over here or over there or something like that there. So they were the blessed ones of place. Steam schooners, when they went, we didn't go down near the waterfront. We went to the lumber yards. So they called it Army Street, but you know the creek down there where the drawbridge is down there. You know, that creek down in there, a lot of steam schooners come in there. Then they came in the Loop Lumber Company, 416th Street.
What did you call that stream with the drawbridge to the south?
Well, we all call it Shit Creek, because, why was it called that? Because on the upper end, that, you see, in those days, there was about 4 or 5 places on the waterfront where there was big pipes like that, and all the sewer was emptied into the bay. There was another one right down there by the ramp, too. And you know what we used to do? We used to fool around with little boats. We made them by ourselves and everything. We used to paddle all around the fucking bay too, and go under the piers, you see, and stuff like that, and catch pigeons, you know, take them home, cook them. Yeah. And so a lot of times when the tide come up, we used to go up those fucking tunnels and all the shit come flying out and everything. you know, that's how you're kids. You give a shit.
Yeah.
That's how it was. Yeah.
Could you go into the shipyards when they were launching a ship?
No, shipyards were very hard to get into. Very hard. They had them well controlled. Yeah, they're well controlled. But I seen ships launched over there at Bethlehem Seal. Yeah. I seen 2 destroyers launched in there around 1941. And you know, and I still remember the numbers on them. There's number 400 and 401. The McCall and the Maury. That was even the names on them. I still remember that.
Was that pretty exciting to see?
It was exciting, yeah, because the fucking thing slide down and the water's all flooding out and the water come up, you know, and everything. We used to, you know, down there where the ramp is right now, I used to work for a guy down there. That was another, he did everything. I used to patch the boats down there, you know, caulk them, see. The seams and stuff like that there. And then when the guys went fishing out there, the guy built a ramp like, he'd bring the boat in like this here, he'd bring the boat in, and then he had kind of a jury deal, and he had it hooked on here, and bring it down, and he'd hook it up, and he'd tilt the boat on one side, you see, and then you washed it out with a hose. I did all of that. And Christ, in 1941, you know, when a guy had a couple of little motor launches. Well, I was working for him, and he put me in charge of a motor launch. I had 4 guys want to go fishing, so I started the fucking motor up and took them out, and they'd tell me where to drop. Well, in those days, there was a lot of bass in the bay, a lot of fish and everything, you know. So you'd see boats all around out there, going out there. Guys that rent boats out there. That guy that had that little place in there, they called it Bill's Boats. His name was William Alexander. And in fact, when he died, I took care of the arrangements for him and everything later on in life, because I worked for him when I was a kid, you know. He had no family or anything like that. But he came in there as a watchman, you know, but he was ahead of his time, because when he came in as a watchman, he was an industrious guy, and he was around and had a watching the boats around it. See, people bring them up and get them painted and stuff like that on the land, you know. He was hired there. He had a little shack, he lived in it there. So anyway, what he did, pretty soon he bought a little boat, you know, and a guy came down and says, hey, you want to rent that boat? He says, yeah. So he rented it out for $5, you see, or $2 or something like that. So then he had it on. Well, pretty soon he had 15 fucking boats. So then he got a couple little cruisers. But then everybody around there was mad as the son of a bitch at him. And one time, who was working down there and every goddamn thing, and the guy had a new Pontiac, came in with a new Pontiac. So one of these assholes, he was pissed off because this guy was industrious and making money. Well, you know what the bastard did? He put a fucking ice pick in 4 of the tires and flatten the fucking tires. So, you know, we did, the guy was out in one of the skiffs out there, we jacked the fucking car up, and about 2 blocks up there was Strand, a gas station right there. We bought the goddamn tires up and fixed them. When the guy came in, he didn't even know what the fuck happened. Screw that bastard. Yeah. But you know, I mean, these stories go on and on. You know, I mean, you had a fucking hustle, man. You know.
Was there? What was the difference between the communities where you lived and higher up on the hill, like Pennsylvania? Well, Pennsylvania and.
Well, Pennsylvania had mostly Italians, and then there was a few Irish up there. You know. But on that block there, that was, you know, those houses, we considered them fucking luxuries. If anybody lived in one of those, they had a nice fucking cement street and sidewalks, and we had to go up Mississippi Street up the fucking hill up there, you know, and ours was all a fucking dirt road, and I had to go across the goddamn wooden bridge down there and everything, you know. We lived in the fucking slums over there. Well, we was living, you know, what could you do? What you see when I got out in the world, you know, I was fucking pretty well seasoned, you know, and I knew the fucking tricks of the trade. And the first ship when I went on there, boy, you know, I knew it worked like a son of a bitch and keep my fucking mouth shut. Well, shit, when I went on that fucking ship, I was only 8 days past 15 when I got my seaman's papers, and that was through a connection, because I knew there was a guy by the name of Tommy Maloney. He was the 20th District Assemblyman. He lived at 350 Missouri. That's where he lived, close to you. And he was the sweetest guy in the world. I used to wash his car. So when I escaped from one of those fucking homes I was in, I went up and knocked on his door. And he said, "What do you want, Tom?" I said, "Listen, the cops are looking for me. They're going to pick me up." I said, "I got to get the fuck out of town." He says, "What do you want to do?" I says, "I want a letter so I can get my seaman's papers, so I can get on a ship and get the hell out of here." You know? He says, "Sit right down here, kid." Wrote me a fucking letter. I jumped on the streetcar, and in those days, you had to go in the cowcatcher, which is the bumper in the back. And every time you got on one of those streetcars and the cowcatcher, you always met 2 or 3 guys you knew, because they were broke too. You know? So that was, they called nipping the streetcar, you know, and there was a nickel, you know. So I went down to the Mint building, I went down there, and I went up there, and there was a big line, about 300 guys. The war just started, you know, wanted to get the seaman's papers. That's where they was issuing them, see. And the guy says, "Hey, kid," he says, "give me that letter." I said, "No," I says, "I have to deliver this to the shipping commissioner." You know, it was addressed to him. So the guy brought me right in, and the shipping commissioner was there. I went in there, you know, I was only 15, you know, fucking red hair and what have you. I needed the haircut. So the guy says, opened it up, and he says, "Hey, sit right down here, kid." Typed it up. About half an hour, I had my fucking papers, you know, and I went down to the Union Hall. 8 days later, I shipped on a big troop ship, 5,000 troops on the fucking thing. I was in the invasion of North Africa in 1942. Yeah, and I had the fucking Germans were bombing the shit out of us and every fucking. I went into everything, you know. And later on, I found out the shipping commissioner and Tommy Maloney, they went to school together, you know. And I says, you know. But I learned at an early age, listen, I'll tell you what, you know, these kids, they don't know. You gotta know how to, you know, later on when I get older, the guy said, when I get on the ships, you know, the guy say, "Listen, kid," he says, "you're working too fucking hard here." He says, "You know," he says, "you're a nice kid." He says, "I'm gonna show you the fucking tricks here." He says, you're too nice of a guy." He says, "Listen," he says, "you gotta get in with these other fucking guys." He says, "Because if you don't learn how to get in with the right guys," he says, "you ain't going no fucking place." He says, "If you want to move up, you got to play with certain people. And that's how you got to do it." And that's what I learned. It's all fucking connections, and it's still going on today. It's who you know, not what you know. You can graduate from Harvard, and if you don't know the right fucking person, the connection, you'll end up working at a fucking gas station. And that's the name of the game. So that's what I was. So when I got on the ship, I worked like a son of a bitch, kept my mouth shut, and when I got on the passage liner, she used to go to Hawaiian Islands. There was all kinds of Hawaiians on there, Kanakas.
Mm-hmm.
Shit, when I was off that fucking ship, I was speaking Kanak, Ahina ia mai, yana kapawana mai. I still remember all it. And so after about a month on that ship, the guy says, "Hey, that guy's a good kid." "That's all right, kid, I'll take it easy. I'll get it for you, don't worry about it." After that, because I worked like a bastard, kept my mouth shut, did what they told me. After that, I was like a fucking passenger on the ship. I didn't do shit. I just fucked around, just goofed around, walked around the fucking decks and everything. Because, that's all right, kid, take it easy.
Were you the youngest kid on the ship, or was there any other guys there your age?
Oh no, there was nobody my age. You had to have the juice. That's what I told you. You had to have juice. See, at 15, there was nobody my age. Yeah, my brother started out when he was 16, and he worked up and he had a master's license when he was 26. He was a master of a ship. The guy was in partners with me in Red McGarvey. Why did he do that? Because, you see, if you're sailing on deck on a ship, what are you? You're fucking around mooring lines and shit like that, steering a ship, and you're painting. Well, what can you become? You can become a painter. If you're working in the engine room, you learn about engines and stuff like that and everything, you see. So when he come ashore, the guy told him about this restaurant for sale and everything. So he just jumped in and learned how to cook. That's what we did. We didn't know shit about it. I couldn't even push a fucking toaster down.
When did your friend take over and you take over Ray's Java House?
Well, we took over, the first one we took over was Ben's Java House at Pier 40. We took that one over, that one there, that still had, it's called a Java House now. We owned the Ben's Java House. My brother took it over first.
About when was that?
That was around 1952. And then my brother wanted to come ashore and he wanted to settle down, see, so he got into that there. So then I was still on the ships, you see. So when I come in on a fucking ship, he says, "Listen," he says, "you got to come in with me now because," he says, "I'm going to get married and fuck it." He says, what am I going to do? I got to go on a honeymoon and this shit and that, and I'll need you. So I paddled off the ship and then I went in there and went partners with him, see. And then you see, my brother was the sweetest guy you'd ever meet, but he's not I'm an easy guy to mix with people. I can mix with anybody, you see. I don't give a fuck who they are, I can mix in. I'm a good bullshitter, and I know how to get in with the fucking crooks, thieves, and I've dealt with all of them, all the fuckers. I know how to work. I know who's who, If I go into a room with 10 people, I'll tell you one fucking thing. When I leave that room, I'm coming out of that fucking room with the smartest son of a bitch in there. Because I know if I want to go any fucking place, I gotta go with him. See, so anyway, I fooled around, then I went down, and at that time, it was Franco's Lunch. That was Red's Java House. That was the original name on it, Franco's Lunch. So there was a Greek guy that owned it, and the son, he was nothing but a playboy and a character. But I went down, he took a liking to me. I worked on him, he took a liking to me. So I told him, I says, "If you ever want to sell this place, let me," he says, "Tom," he says, "if I ever sell this fucking place," he says, "I'll sell it to you, because you're the only guy that I like. You were very friendly and nice to me, and that's how you gotta do it." So about a year later, he come up and he says, "Tom," he says, "I'm ready to go." So I went down and I bought that joint, see? So my brother stood up here 40. I went down to Red's Java House. See, that's how, because I had the real red hair and my brother didn't. That's where the name came from, see? So I went down there and I had a couple of girls working for it. And that was your biggest fucking problem. The fucking woman, they'd fucking drive you to drink. Can't show up, the babysitter didn't show up, my car got a flat tire, this is wrong and that's wrong, what the fuck, And you had In those days, you know, there was 300-400 longshoremen working, and you had to hustle, you know. So eventually I told my brother, I says, we gotta sell that other fucking joint, and you gotta come in with me, or I says, I'm getting the fuck out of here because I can't handle it, and I'm gonna get married too now, you know. So we sold the one at Pier 40, and then my brother come down with me, so then we was partners so he could work it better. He'd open one day and I'd open the next. We learned, you have a system, you know, when you run a business. We're very good at running management. I'm very good at management. I can come in a fucking place, I can tell you nothing flat with the fuckers, what's wrong here, how you can make it going. Out of about 20 restaurants on the waterfront, coffee shops and stuff, we had the lowest rent because I went to the Ferry building, I knew the fucking game of politics. And that's how it's done. You gotta go out and work for it, baby. Nobody's gonna knock on your fucking front door and give you anything. Yeah.
Tom, what was the name of that candy shop that you said began with a B? They used to give you candy when you go in there. It was on.
Oh yeah, that's Bunty's.
Bunty's.
Bunte. Yeah, that's right there at the corner of 19th. Let that fucking name right. 19th and 3rd Street. It's a brick building, and right next door to it was an entrance to Levin's scrapyard.
That's what I just saw. Joseph A. Levin.
Yeah,
I just saw the
that's
building
it.
is still there.
Yeah,
But it's not a scrapyard anymore. I think the condo people who bought it saved that portion of it because it still has a sign up
The
there.
sign is
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
yeah. And it had a little way station right there. You see, when you went in there, they had the big yard, and right there next to Bunty, there was a little scale there. And when you brought your scrap iron or anything in there, you went in there, the guy weighed it and this and that, you went in and dumped it, and then you come back out, and that's what you got paid for. They had a big yard there. You know, that's another place. We used to go in there at night, we used to go in there and steal fucking batteries. And bring them back a few days later and sell them to them. You had it.
That's a hustle. That's a hustle. You got to do it.
The more things you ask me about, the more can of worms I got because we did all these things, everything.
What about the Roundhouse?
The what?
The Roundhouse?
Oh, the Roundhouse. That was Southern Pacific now. That was right at Mariposa Street right there. And right where the freeway ramp is right now, right down in there now, just going a little bit north. There was a big fucking shed in there, and then to the right, the Roundhouse was right there. And the big shed was for all the tools and stuff and equipment, and the men came in there. There was about 200 guys working there.
What did you steal from there?
Well, you couldn't really, I didn't steal anything from there. But I sold papers in the fucking building down there and all that. I went down, there was a little side door and steps going right down in there. You had to go down, it was a drop in there. And, but right next to that there, just going a little bit north, that's where the crematory was. We called it the Crem. See, but the crematory, they call it the Crem.
Somebody told me they would look for buggy wheels at the crematorium to make.
Oh yeah, you look for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was all Italians there that run that, you know. And you see, the thing is, you'd go down in certain places, and you'd have the good. They'd have the good stuff that they picked out of there. The garbage men. Well, fuck, we'd go over there and try to nail that stuff. Because they did the work.
Yeah.
You know, that was it. But there was a lot of it was bottles and stuff. And then we'd take them up to the grocery stores, and the grocery stores usually up in Potrero Hill, you know. And one of them was the Rosa brothers. Did you ever see that name?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was two brothers in there. And they had a very, very busy grocery store in there. They were very good. They had a little truck, and if you bought $10 worth of grocery, they'd deliver it to your house. If you had to buy $5 or $10 in groceries in those days, they'd have one of the kids in the school, went to school or something, and then after school, he'd drive the little truck and deliver them to the house. But you had to spend $5 or $10. That was a big fucking thing, you know. See? There was Marty and Joe. They run it. I remember those guys. So we used to bring the bottles in there, And, you know, the thing is, you gotta watch the fucking tops that they wasn't all cracked and shit like that and everything, you know? A little crack on it, you couldn't put a cork on and seal it again, you know what I mean?
Right.
So to give you 2 cents a piece for them, well, we bring them in there. That was just another thing. Then there was a bottle factory down there. Where the fuck down there? We can go in there and steal bottles in there too and every fucking thing, you know? And that's what it was.
Was there a bakery on 18th near Connecticut?
Well, that place was used as Epler's. At the, right down there in the corner of 18th and let's see, 16th.
Isn't Epler's on Mariposa though? Or?
It was Mariposa, yeah. And then later on too, some egg outfit went in there. And then Coca-Cola was in there. There was all different ones in there. That's right for that restaurant is, what do they call it, Connecticut? Yankee?
Yeah.
Yeah, well that used to be in those days, that was Salvati's. That's what it was named. And that was a hell of a good restaurant. The fucking food was delicious in there. You know, a lot of truck drivers used to park there, right there, and get their lunch in there. Old Italian style, you know. They had good lunches in there. Very, yeah, it was running very good. And a lot of the kids now hung around up there at Connecticut, you know, at 18th in Connecticut, it was a creamery there, you know the Goat Hill Pizza? Mm-hmm. Well, that was the corner creamery. Young kids in the 40s now, and up to around 65, they hung around that corner in there, in around there. And then it went vacant, and then it became the Goat Hill Pizza. But originally, you see, that's 300 Connecticut Street is the address. So originally, when I was a kid down there in the 30s, we'd be in the flea house, come down there, that was called the 300 Club. That was a bar. Before it was a corner creamery, and before it was a Goat Hill Pizza. If you look at the address, it's 300, it was called the 300 Club. Okay. An Italian guy ran it, him and his wife. And then later on, they closed it up. And they went to the corner across the street, and they made that into a bar. And that used to be a drugstore at one time too. That place there. Now it's a restaurant or some fucking thing. And there was a fighter in there by the name of Tony Bostich, and another guy by the name of Tony Sansoni. Tony Bostich was a good fighter. He fought Joey Maxim. And he went in there with Tony Sansoni and Tony Bostich. They ran that bar for quite a while. They did a good business in there when those two guys were in there.
Did you know I met Tommy Egan?
I know him very good. I can tell you all about it. He lived down on 18th and Tennessee, down there, and he was a welterweight fighter, and he was a tough son of a bitch. But he fought main event at the Civic Auditorium a lot of times. I seen a lot of his fights. But Tommy was a very nice guy, good-natured guy and everything, but he liked to drink, he liked to smoke fucking cigars, and he liked pussy. And that don't mix with fighting. But he was a tough son of a bitch. He would fight anybody. He was a very nice guy though. Mm-hmm. And he had a brother by the name of Babe Egan. I don't know what I think it was George maybe. They called him Babe, you know. A lot of times you just knew the guy's nickname. He lived right there.
I heard about an old barn on 18th and Texas, and a guy trained teenagers in the neighborhood in boxing. Does that ring any bells?
18th and Texas.
18th and Texas, yeah. Kind of behind the new Potrero Market that's there now, that there was a barn, and I forget the man's name, who was like, had this boxing club for youth in the neighborhood.
What year are we talking about?
This would have been late 40s, mid to late 40s, early 50s.
No, don't ring a bell.
How did you get involved with boxing?
How did I get involved with boxing? You see, you know, consequently knowing a lot of guys and everything, some guy called me up and he says, listen, Tom, he says, I want you to do me a favor. And I said, what do you want me to do? He says, there's a guy down there, we got a pretty good fighter down here, down 11 Street down there. He's a Samoan. And I'd like you to come down and take a look at him and everything. So I says, well, all right, I'll come down there, you know. They're sucking me in, you know. And so I went down there and I said, this guy looks pretty good, but I said, I don't know much about the fucking fight game, you know. But I said, he looks like a pretty good fighter. So in the meantime, Pat Lawler was there, and he was getting ready to go in the Golden Gloves, see. So some guy told me, Pat, he says, go and see this guy here, this guy's an honest guy here, you see him while you got him here, you know. I think that was a setup to get me down there, see. So anyway, I met Pat and everything, and so he's gonna fight in the Golden Gloves. So I said, well, I was always interested in fighters, you know. So anyway, I went down there and I watched a couple of fights that he had in the Golden Gloves, you know. So then pretty soon he came to me and he says to me, he says, hey Tom, he says, you know, I'm going out of the Golden Gloves, I'm gonna turn pro. And he says, I'd like you to manage me. Oh, I says, fuck, I says, I can't manage you. I says, what the hell do I know about the game? Well, he says, you know your way around and everything, and I know you're an honest guy. And he says, I'd like to have you. I said, he says, you know, he says, I got about 5 guys that want to manage me, but he says, I want you, you know. Well, I says, you know, grab one of these other guys, you know. No, but he says, I want you. He says, I don't want to. Well, I says, I'll tell you what. I said, come on over to my house and see what my wife says, you know, and see what she says, you know. Well, fuck, she didn't know what the hell was going on. She didn't run about. So she says, yes. So I went on as manager. So we started fighting in the little clubs around here, and they got a good record. And I learned the tricks. I started studying, and I found out that what you got to do is there's tricks of the trade in that business too. So I'll tell you what they do. If you got a fighter, you want to do. So I got you as my fighter here now, and we're just starting. We've got to work up. So the idea is to try to get a fighter up to 20-0. When you can get them to 20-0, you can get $1 million or $2 million for the fight, because you're undefeated. You'll probably get a championship fight, you know, provided you build the guy up good. So anyway, start working on this here. So what I did is, if we're gonna go and fight a guy, well, I find out where this guy was working out at, you see. So you take your fighter there and you look at him, and I say, Pat, you think you beat this guy? I can beat him. We take the fight. That's how you do it. And the next time it's the same thing. And if he says, I don't know, we don't take the fight. We don't take it, because we don't want no losses. We gotta get you up. We want all wins. So that's how you work the fighters up. You gotta spend time, you gotta know the angles and the tricks to work them up. So I got the fighter built up. So pretty soon, they flew us down to Las Vegas here for this fight with Roberto Duran. That was a triple champion, you know. What the fuck? And the guy said, hey Tom, he says, I think you're overmatched. Well, I said, fuck it. I said, we take the goddamn fight here anyway. And I said, I think he's got a pretty good chance here. So anyway, he beat Duran, you see, in Las Vegas. We was the undercard to Tyson, you know. We fought in a Mirage Hotel, you know, a big fucking crowd. And I had a fucking badge here, you know, my name on it, and I could go any place in the hotel. I'm a big shot, and people are coming to me and trying to get my autograph, and just taking pictures with me and the whole fucking thing, you know. You're somebody, you know. And so I went over to the fucking bookies, and Pat was 15-1. Well, I put some dough on him, you know. I said, well, fuck it. I said, I could load it. There's a few $100 in there. Well, son of a bitch, he won, you know, and the fucking guy couldn't believe it. And anyway, so what happened, you have to go up to Sacramento, you know, and be licensed as a manager. And they check you over and, you know, they interview me and this and that, and so you either sign a 1, 3, or 5 year contract. So we had signed a 1 year contract, you know. So after that, Pat said, well, let's sign a 3 year. So I said, okay. And it ended up being 5 years, you know. So anyway, I said, okay. So I signed a contract for that and everything. My record was good and what have you and stuff like that. So anyway, some bullshitters came around, you know. And all, you know, when you win a fight like that, all the fucking freeloaders come out, you know, hanging around Pat and this and that and all that. So some smart promoter come over there and talked him into fighting a champion, the welterweight champion, the middleweight champion of the world, yeah. That was his name, I can't think of his name now. He's Terry Moore, yeah, a hell of a fighter, you know. And I said, what the fuck? He signed the contract. So the guy came to me and he says, hey, Tom, he says, you know, you're a fighter. He signed a contract with this guy here to fight this guy. I said, no shit. Yeah. So I called Pat. I said, hey, Pat, I said, what the fuck happened here? You know, I says, I'm your manager, you know. I'm the guy that signs up for the fucking fight. Well, they offered me a good purse, you know, $40,000, you know, to fight. Well, I says, fuck it. I says, $40,000. I said, I'm getting close to get you a fucking $1 million fight. And I says, you're gonna lose. And this guy's gonna knock you out in about the 3rd fucking round. I'm telling you that right now. I know the guy. He's a tough son of a bitch. I know we can't beat him, and I know you. Fucking fight aside. I said, okay, Pat. I said, I'm gonna work the corner, and I'll help carry you out of the fucking corner when this guy knocks you out. And then I says, I'm going up to fucking Sacramento and cancel my goddamn license. Well, the guy knocked him out in the fucking 3rd round. I went up to Sacramento, I canceled my license. Pat had about 10 fights after that again. He never got another manager. Never get. He says, I had the best manager in the United States, and I was stupid. I lost my fucking. I'm gonna tell you the truth. For every fight that you have fight, a manager gets 33 1/3%. I didn't take a dime. I gave him all the money. I have a letter showing that. He called me up on my birthday, at Christmas time, he called my wife up, the whole goddamn. Pat Lawler is a very, very nice guy, but he didn't have the brains. You gotta have this. And that's what I had. And I gave it to him, but he didn't use it. If you're a little stupid or something, and if I help you up and bring you up and everything, you gotta realize that what I'm giving you, that you don't have, I'm trying to help you to bring you up. That's all. I didn't need the fucking money. I had the money. I didn't give a shit. I was doing it because I like to do it. A lot of people in life, a lot of times you'll find somebody that'll help you out, they don't want anything. I'm very experienced in real estate. I saved a lady up here. I had a lady buy a house up here for $1 million, and I was the goddamn real estate guy. Three people that were millionaires and big builders and everything says, don't listen to that fucking McGarvey. He doesn't know. And her name was Fiona. I felt sorry for her because her husband hung himself and she had 3 kids and she was renting a fucking house. And I knew how to get her in that goddamn house, you know. I know, I'm very good at real estate. I used to be an investor in real estate. So anyway, I says, don't listen to those guys. I says, they're young guys, they're very nice guys, you know, but I says, they don't have depth. What I had, depth. I got, the guy wanted $1.3 million for it, I got it for $1 million for it. The house is now priced at $2.5 million.
There you go.
You have to know which guy is giving your land a shit and which guy isn't. You have to know that. See, I got three daughters, 3 lovely daughters. I got 4 grandkids. I did everything in the world for them. If I tell you what I did for them, you'd never believe it. I don't need money. When money gets a hold of you, you see, you're fucked. Hit the dirt. Greed is no good. When fucking greed gets a hold of you, My wife, I was married for 57 years. I got this house here, right here now. The house doesn't mean shit. Doesn't mean a fucking thing. It's your part. The most important person in the house when you're living in this is your family and your wife. It's the most important. When you lose that, you lose 50% of yourself when you lose your wife. Believe me, that doesn't mean shit. I bought everything from this fucking house. I had everything in it. I bought anything my wife wanted. Money don't mean shit. Doesn't. Once you get like me, I'm born and raised in a fucking ghetto, and I'm a millionaire, you know. I don't advertise it. So what? I give it most of my kids and everything and stuff like that. I made a lot of fucking money, you know, because I know how to deal, you know. It doesn't mean shit. It doesn't bring back my wife.
Mm-hmm.
My wife is my most important thing. Yeah, that's it. Money, you can't buy health, and you can't buy a good partner. You can't buy them. It has to be there. Money kills these. What are these guys doing with 2 and 3 and fucking 4 and 5? Why don't they give it to somebody?
Yeah. Or do something with it to help other people.
Spread it around, man.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do with it? You can't take it down to the fucking graveyard.
Yeah. And when is enough money enough money? It's like, look, you already made enough. Why do you want more? You already got plenty.
I got an Italian bookkeeper. You know what he says to me? I know the guy for 40 years. He says to me, Tom, he says, how much do you need? That's the answer. How much do you need?
Yeah.
I help a lot. I did a lot of favors. I gave scholarships out to St. Ignatius. I gave scholarships out down here to Mercy. I gave scholarships down to the area center because the bookkeeper said to me, he says, Tom, he says, I know you sold fucking papers for 3 cents a fucking piece, but he says, you gotta give some money away. I said, what? Yeah, because he says if you don't, the government will get it anyway.
Yeah.
And that's what it is.
Yeah.
See? That's what it is. So, to be honest with you now, see, my wife's been dead a year and a half. I have a girlfriend now. And if I didn't have that girlfriend, I met a fantastic lady. Because her husband was down in the home where my wife had died of Alzheimer's. And she had her husband down there, he died. And when I seen the type of lady that was, when the funeral came, I helped her out with money for the funeral. I got her the priest. I sang a song for her, Danny's Boy. I did the whole fucking thing. Yeah, because I seen how that lady took care of her husband. And when I seen that, you know, some people are watching you a lot of times, you don't know it. And I watch people. And when I seen what that lady did for me, I says, fuck me. I says, this fucking lady's a saint. So I go with that lady. If I didn't have that lady right now, I might be in Holy Cross myself. Because I have to be, I'm a city slicker, see, I have to be around people. People make me go. If I'm not around people, I'm fucking useless. I'm finished. I have to be around people and helping them and giving them advice. I gave a lot of people advice about real estate, you know, Proposition 13, how to keep it, different strategy, how to buy it. I have a son-in-law as a general contractor. He lives on this block. How did he get on this fucking block? And the house that he bought, a Chinaman owned it. And I bought the house from a Chinaman. Because I do how to talk to. That's what it is. You get things by being nice.
It's true.
When you're tough, you're making a mistake. You're going to get screwed. You have to be nice and find out how to get around this person, you know. And you'll get more things by being nice than being tough. When you're tough, that's it. It stops. When you're being nice, you play with it. You work. I worked on that Chinaman up there for 1 fucking year before I got that house. Yeah. And he finally said the same thing as the other guy said to me. He says, why sell this fucking house? He says, I'm selling it to you.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what my landlady said when she sold me the house.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Because he says, you're the nicest guy in the neighborhood.
Yep.
You always
deserve
talk.
it. Yep.
Yeah. And that's how I got it. That's how you got to do it.
It's true.
You just have to. And if you're nice to a person that doesn't work, don't worry about it. Try another one. Yeah. The lady says to me, she says, Tom, you want one hug? No, I says, I'd rather have two. I says, two is better than one. No, I come from the old school, you know, and I know the fucking tricks, but one thing, I'm not an asshole, and I help people out, and I do a lot of favors, but I don't advertise the fucking thing because you'll have a big fucking line out here. You know what I mean? But that's what I learned from being born and raised in the ghetto. Treat everybody nice and be good to everybody, even those guys are an asshole, because you might need that asshole to move forward.
Yeah.
That's it, you gotta learn. You gotta learn how to get around that bastard.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what else you guys wanna know, but I mean, anything I'll tell you anything I know, you know, it's no problem with me.
Have you heard of a place called the Western Fuel Company?
Well, I heard the
Tennessee?
name, but I
Yeah.
don't.
I have a photograph of it from Nancy, and there's a guy in a carriage from that, probably the 20s. When you played up on Irish Hill, you said the foundations were still there.
Yeah.
Were the streets still there, or they weren't paved, or?
No, you see, the street goes down to the shipyard, then there was a parking lot, and then there was Irish Hill.
How much of Irish Hill was there? More than is there now? Now there's just that.
Oh, there was quite a bit when I was there, yeah.
Yeah.
The grass was all green up there, but you could go up there and walk around and you'd see all the cement foundations and everything. Because we played up there when we was kids up
Right.
there too, you know. We played all over the fucking place. You could go any place you want, you know.
Now, I'm trying to pin down when they leveled the part of the hill, because when you guys were playing up there, the hill was still pretty big.
Oh yeah,
It's huge.
I'm talking about when we played up there, 38, 39.
Because shortly after that was when they blasted the hill away. Do you remember any of that when they blasted the hill? Because I mean that was huge earth moving project.
Oh yeah, that was solid rock in there.
Exactly.
Solid rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, solid rock. See, and then you had the American Can Company there. You know, a lot of people don't know. There was 500 fucking employees in there, that building there, you know? Right there. And then it was so big that they went down past 22nd, between the 22nd and 23rd.
Right.
Yeah.
And they built down in there. So goddamn big in those days. And then over here on Mariposa Street, there was a Pacific Can Company over there, you know. That was another big camp. There was another 500. And but you see, in those days over there before the war, most people lived in the houses all around there, and they all walked to work.
Right.
See, that's where they all worked. They didn't have to ride a streetcar or nothing. They all walked to work. There was a shipyard. There was a can company down there. There was all kinds of goddamn little factories around.
Wasn't there a big fruit company?
Yeah.
Cannery?
Yeah. That was down on Indiana Street. That was, you know, the bridge comes up on 18th Street.
Yeah.
Well, right there, that Minnesota in 18th, that was Cal Bear Canneries. There was about 500 people working in there. We used to go down there, another place. I stole peaches down there. Yeah. And you see, you know what we used to do when the train come in, you see, you know, you sold magazines, you had a bag like that to carry the magazine, you throw it on your shoulder like the persons and women all do. So we get one of these magazine bags, and when the cars were coming in to Cal Bear, you know, there was openings, you see, you know, food trucks, you know, and you just jump on the fucking train, crawl up there with your bag, and help yourself to some fucking peaches going down there. Yeah. Well, that was a big, there was 500 people working in there, all around. There was all kinds of little metal shops and stuff like that and everything.
Were there other churches down there in that neighborhood?
There was no other churches, no other churches down there.
Not on Tennessee?
No, there was nothing on Tennessee. That's originally where St. Teresa's came from, you know. Mm-hmm. You got the history of that. Mm-hmm. But, around 22nd Street, you know, and then up around Potrero Hill, there was a lot of little grocery stores all over the goddamn place up there, you know. There was, you know, and a lot of people didn't have money, and some of those grocery stores, there was a place down there at the corner of 22nd and Minnesota. There was a guy that had a grocery store down there, an Irish guy, and his name was P.H. Geary and Sons. And in those days, you see, most little businesses and little stores like that and everything, usually the people lived in over the top of the store or in the back. You see, at some of those stores, you know, they have regular customers, and sometimes a guy might come in there about 6 or 7 o'clock at night, and the fucking grocery store might be closed, and the guy might ring the doorbell, and the guy come down and open it up and get it for him. That's how it was done, because he knew him. And that guy down there now, for one guy, he had what they call a ledger, and you could go down and put up to about $15 on the cuff. You signed for it. He had a ledger in there. You signed for it, see? The fucking pots and pans and shit. And then up from the flea house now, there was, you know, there was a hardware store there. And do you know the name of that?
Ferraris?
You got it. John Ferraris. Ferraris. And he lived up and top over the store, and he had all daughters. He never had no sons. And he was a fucking handyman and a nice guy. But he used to go, the daughters and his wife used to be in the store, and he used to go all around Potrero Hill and repair things in houses. He was a very nice guy, very handy. And he had everything in there. John Ferraris, a very nice guy, yeah.
Do you remember a dentist in the building where Owl Pharmacy was? A dentist upstairs?
No, but I'll tell you what. There was a dentist. You know what I just told you what a shoe store was across the street from you?
Yeah.
It was a dentist up on top of that one.
Oh, okay.
And then on the corner of by St. Teresa's over there now, on 19th Street there, and Connecticut.
Dr. Cantu.
Yeah, that's the name, yeah. But there was a building right in there. You know that little wheelbarrows laying in there and everything now?
Yeah, that's
It's a
Jerry's.
lot now.
Yeah, Jerry
Yeah.
just died not too long ago too. Very
Okay,
sad.
that building burnt down.
Yeah,
That's what happened in there. And there was a dentist in there too.
yeah.
And look at that piece of lot there.
His brother, who lives in Oregon, inherited that property from Jerry. Poor Jerry worked on radios and Victrolas and everything.
Yeah.
Nice guy, kind of gruff, but once you got to know him, just the nicest man in the world. He was driving to a radio show in LA. He had a heart attack, drove his truck into a pole, and that was it.
Yeah.
2 or 3 years ago. So now his brother owns that property. I've been in that little house, cute little house, but that's a gold mine, that corner property. It's a double lot.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, double lot.
Oh,
Yeah.
He doesn't want to sell it? Or?
No one has lived in that house since the 80s, and the brother doesn't want to sell it. You know, he's just sitting on it. You know, vagrants got in there. They were living in the house for a while. They messed things up. But he took me in the house and he showed me the dentist chair.
Yeah.
He had a dentist chair in there
Yeah.
too. So, yeah, nice people, but very sad.
I think
yeah.
I bought a civil defense hat from him, you know,
Yeah.
from the Second World War, a white hat with a leather
Yeah, he
strap.
sold everything. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's sad.
Oh,
Did you know Bert Klenn?
Oh, yeah, Bert Klein. He was the guy that had that. He's the guy. Now, he used to be connected with the gas station, too.
Strand, Circus.
Yeah, Strand Service, and that was on the corner of Mariposa and 3rd Street. And he had a nice gas station, and that was Standard Oil. And he did a big business there. He was a very good operator, that guy. Very smart guy.
I met him. He was still running Strand Appliances
That's
where
right.
Ferraris
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah.
Very nice
but
guy.
Yeah, very nice guy. Good businessman. He had a big business in that corner gas station down there, you know.
They sold records in the gas station.
Yeah.
Kind of strange. I mean,
Yeah.
I never thought of that. I think he met Frank Sinatra somehow through the record business.
Oh,
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah, the next corner up there, you know, the 18th and 3rd now, that bar is on the corner. The original name of that was Amos. AIMOS.
No, we're 18th and 3rd?
18th and 3rd.
I think it's a Japanese restaurant or Moshi or something.
Moshi.
Yeah,
Okay.
Gray
okay.
building.
Corner
Yeah.
right in the building.
Okay.
And across the street was a gas station, and it was Gilmore Oil Company. And the offices were right there too. I sold papers right there too. Yeah.
I remember one of the families on Tennessee Street said they would bring wine for some of the sisters at St. Teresa's school. They really liked their homemade wine.
Well, you see, that was a winery right there, do you know, right on Indiana.
The Shilling? The
No,
Shilling
no,
Winery?
I don't know what the name of it is, but I used to go in there. But a pretty good sized winery right on Indiana Street there. And it ran between Indiana and Minnesota, right in there. Right underneath the bridge, you know the bridge that goes there? Just a little south of the top of the bridge. There was a big brick building in there. And they had a regular big winery. There was probably about 25, 30 employees working in there.
This family said there was a donation box somewhere in the schoolyard of St. Teresa's school, I think, and you could leave anything there, I guess, for the poorer kids or for the sisters.
Yeah.
Because they lived very simply.
Oh, the poor sisters, boy, I feel sorry for the sisters, you know, they got screwed, man. Fucking
Life of service.
They did all their fucking work for nothing.
Yeah.
The priests, these fucking priests were all flying back and forth to Ireland and Italy and what have you. And the poor nuns, they was all fucking near there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we used to walk from there. We had to walk up to the church, you know. So that was the deal. And then they used to have little parties underneath in the hall in there. And shit, I was in one of the shows too, on the stage up there, and every St. Patrick's Day parade one, you know, the little shows in there. It was very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they had it was just hard time, boy.
Yeah.
Did they have religious processions from St. Teresa's? I know there was like a group from Korchula.
Well, they had a regular choir in St. Teresa's, and they had a guy that worked there. He was, I guess he got paid or something. His name was Hutchinson, and he had a regular choir. They had a regular choir singing every Sunday up there in St. Teresa's Church. And the way they did it, you see, the same thing when he went into the school down there. The boys lined up on one side on the street. You stood out in the street, and the girls went in, and so many nuns went in with you on that side, the right, and so many on the left. You see, the boys went in on the right, the girls went in on the left, and there'd be maybe a couple of nuns there on that side, a couple of nuns on the other side. And if you didn't go to that mass, you automatically stood after school on Monday. They knew who wasn't there. Yeah. So then if I had a paper route, I'd have to jump out the fucking window and take a hike. We'd jump out the window. You did it.
You did what you had to do, huh?
You had to do everything, you know.
Tom, I can't find you in here. Which one are you?
Well, I'm not in that one now.
Oh, you're not in this one? Okay.
No, but my brother's in that, my youngest brother, and he got killed in Okinawa. That's him right there.
You know, I was looking at him and I thought I saw some sort of family resemblance.
Okay.
This little one with the freckles right here.
Okay, this is me now.
Okay.
Over
Right
here.
in the end. Huh.
See?
Yeah.
This is a different group. See, this
Which is you? You are where?
right here.
Oh, here?
Did they
Yeah,
tell you guys
there.
in those days, like, you know, don't make a big smile for the camera, just, you know,
They
like...
didn't say this shit. We didn't even know what the hell was going on.
Yeah, because I've seen pictures of kids from the school and everyone just kind of standing
Take
there
a
like...
look at this.
Yeah, some of
look
them
at
are just like,
Holy God
shell-shocked.
almighty.
Yeah.
Shooting spitballs at these girls.
Oh, it's so funny.
Yeah, the other guy that became a millionaire, his name was Anthony Zittich. And he was the city treasurer over here in Westlake for 40 years.
Yeah.
And he owned Harrington's real estate.
Yeah.
And that's when the nun said, you guys are going to be a bunch of fucking hoodlums.
I had no idea you were the